All right. Welcome to the Marketing Mindset. This is a once a week series we're doing here at AgencySparks. Of course, this week we actually wanted to focus on a topic that's been really near and dear to our hearts here at AgencySparks. We've been writing a lot about it. We've been talking a lot about it. We even held a breakfast specifically focused on measurement. And so I'm entitling this week's Marketing Mindset or Marketer's Mindset as Marketing Matters. And so what I want to do is just talk through some of the content that we've been publishing from a measurement standpoint, and I'll talk through some of the key points of some of that content. So we've written a number of blog posts in the last several months about measurement, and in fact, if you go to AgencySparks.com/blog, or actually AgencySparks.com/blog archives, you can see all of the posts that we create on various topics, but particularly with regards to measurement. There have been a lot lately. So in March, we published a post called Measuring Marketing Success in the Digital Age. We then launched an infographic that talked about aligning digital metrics with KPIs. And then we did a separate post in May that was about measurement and marketing measurement specifically, and what really matters most. And then we did an event in May that was what we call our Marketer's Breakfast, and this one was particularly focused on measurement as well. So I'm going to talk through some of that content and some of the key points, and then I would invite you to go to AgencySparks.com/blog archives, where you can actually read the original posts. Also, we'll stick some links to those pieces of content in the show notes as well. So just really quickly, one of the things that we talk about at AgencySparks and just in terms of measurement is starting with the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and the business objectives with those in mind first. And so I would encourage you to begin. I'm going to give you the list of things that we should be looking at from a measurement standpoint, and then I'll give you an example of each. So the list, first thing we need to look at is what is your objective? What is your business objective? Second, what are the key performance indicators that are specific to marketing that can affect that larger objective? The third thing is, what is the strategy that we're using to support the key performance indicators? And you may recall we did in the Marketing Mindset, I used the Trojan War as an analogy to talk through insight, objective, strategy, and tactic. And so we still need to remember those things when we're going into measurement and talking about measurement. So objective, what are the KPIs for marketing that are specifically that can affect that larger objective? What strategy do we use to support those KPIs, the key performance indicators? What are the marketing performance metrics that we're going to use? What are the tactical approaches? And then how are we going to measure those approaches? So I'm going to give you an example, a real world example of some of those things, right? So from a perspective of objective, maybe your objective is to increase revenue by 25% in the coming year. And so that's your objective. But from a marketing standpoint, what are the key performance indicators for marketing that can affect that? Well, one could be, I'm going to increase the number of marketing qualified leads by 20%. Knowing that increasing the number of marketing qualified leads will then lead to increased revenue, right? Long term. Secondly, the strategy to support the KPIs. Maybe our strategy might be to create some gated content to entice customers to give you their name and phone number and email address so that you can follow up as a marketing qualified lead. And then a key performance metric might be, how is the landing page that you're driving those prospects to performing, and how many leads did you generate from that page, right? And then in terms of a tactical approach, we might be using paid social media or paid media to drive traffic to the landing page. And then the metrics that we'll measure those tactics with would be things like what is our cost per 1,000 impressions? What is our cost per click? What is our click-through rate? What is our bounce rate on our landing page? So there's an example of how you can kind of think through objective, key performance indicator for marketing, strategies to support the KPIs, the performance metrics from a marketing standpoint, the tactics in terms of the approach, and then how do you measure the tactics. We did an infographic in context to a larger blog post that was about aligning digital metrics with KPIs. And particularly we did one on big data, and it was very interesting. In the actual infographic, we talked about 3 common traps that people fall into from a big data standpoint. They distrust the data is one thing. They get what we call a data daze. And then the other thing is they get analysis paralysis, where they start to get into the numbers and then they don't know where to begin. And so they stop. So we talk in that infographic about ways to overcome those 3 common traps. And some of the things that we talk about in terms of steps towards getting the right data is deciding what data is really relevant, deciding what data we currently have or need. Is it good data? How much do we need? Etc. So something to think about. Seek out that infographic. Again, we'll put it in the show notes. But we also did another infographic fairly recently that was about aligning the metrics with KPIs. And we talk about objective, KPIs, strategy, performance. So all the things I just talked about just a few minutes ago are in a single infographic that will make it easy for you to visualize and see what we're talking about. So the last thing I want to talk about was we did a post about marketing measurement and why it matters. And I want to read a quick statement to you that came from Gartner. So according to this Gartner report, customer experiences are the most pressing mandate for marketers. What used to be a linear customer journey has turned into a non-sequential scatter plot of micro interactions between brands and customers, where potential customers may interact with brands hundreds of times before actually purchasing. Attributing the real value of these micro interactions to the overall business objectives has put marketers in between a rock and a hard place. So we used to think about the traditional customer journey, and it may have started with some interest and then some, attraction and then intent, and then they might make a purchase. And then we were trying to feed them into a loyalty loop so that they would come back. And then we were trying to get them to be advocates and start promoting our content on social or promoting us to their friends through word of mouth. The new customer journey might include lots of micro touch points, as Gartner talked about them, where there's no linear path to purchase anymore like there used to be. And so the customer journey has changed quite a bit. There's awareness and consideration and purchase and retention and advocacy, but all of the things that affect those move along the path. So public relations and word of mouth and online ads and email and social media and reviews and blogs and websites and direct mail and e-commerce and community forums and newsletters. And there's so many different touch points that would lead a consumer on different points of the path through those awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and advocacy. So because the journey has changed, we need to be prepared as marketers to measure each step of that process. The other thing is, as we talked about before with the micro touch points for the consumer, there are micro measurements that we keep as marketers that ladder up to the larger key performance indicators or objectives. So, anyway, we need to think through starting at the end with what you want your end result to be. What is your ultimate goal? And then you can work your way back to the touch points and the measurements that lead to that end goal. One other thing is that understanding how customers use each channel and KPIs differently. Google did a study that was fairly interesting. 16% of U.S. retailers see 16% more ad conversions when they get cross-device data. 87% of consumers do research before entering a store. 40% of enterprises still use first touch, last touch attribution. So how do we as marketers use data to connect the dots between all the different touch points that the consumer sees? And one thing that I would also recommend is creating multiple dashboards to measure success. No one dashboard can measure everything that's important to your business. And so I've got some do's and don'ts for you really quickly that I'll talk through, and then we'll end up this session of the marketing mindset. So have a dashboard, an executive dashboard, an operations dashboard, and a tactical dashboard. Those are the three that I would recommend. Start with a primary business goal and work backwards, like I just said. Assign an owner of each given metric. So they need to have a specific role and title who ultimately are responsible for the measurement of that specific metric. Look at past content and see what content has performed well to help evaluate which kinds of content you need in the future from a measurement standpoint. Take account of where your company is in terms of your stage of growth, also competitors. Benchmark the current data so that you can see how trends emerge over time. And then lastly, users should be able to click through the dashboard to get deeper and get deeper dives into the content there. On the don't sides, don't track vanity metrics. Just because it's an impressive number doesn't mean it's important to your business. One size does not fit all in terms of dashboards, so you have to determine what KPIs, key performance indicators, are most important for your own business. Don't track metrics that are irrelevant to your company goals. Don't prioritize quantity over quality when it comes to metrics. There are a couple of key metrics that are important for your business. For example, here at AgencySparks, we're like a dating service for brands and agencies. We're matchmakers. So ultimately, we are tracking introductions that we make between brands and agencies, and that's the key metric that everything else we do rolls into that key metric. And then, don't prevent your strategy from evolving over time. As you grow as a company, you really need to evolve your metrics that are most important. One other thing, timing is important. Distinguishing between guts and facts and coming out with the right metrics that are going to work for the right time for your business. One other thing I want to add kind of as a little value add at the end, out of the marketers breakfast that we held in May, there were some kind of key questions that we helped answer together. What metrics does your business measure to succeed? How do you come up with those key performance indicators as a business? How do you report the data to the C-suite within your organization? What key metrics are important to? Where do you need to go super deep, and where do you need to give summary level data? How often do you measure? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it yearly? Do you measure net promoter score as a business? On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend my business to a friend? That's a net promoter score. It's nice to track that over time as a measure of brand health. Isn't revenue the ultimate ROI? But what are the other things you should be measuring that lead up to revenue? And then how do you choose to measure and report everything that you do? Like, what tools do you use? And during that breakfast, we talked about a lot of different tools beyond just the Excel spreadsheet. There's Google's Data Studio, Sensor Tower, Splunk, App Figures, MicroStrategies, Converge, Tableau. There were a lot of different tools that we talked about. But obviously for you, you need to find the right tools to measure the right things at the right time. And I welcome a discussion with you about what tools you use to measure, what metrics you choose to share with your team to evaluate your success, and also invite you to go to AgencySparks.com/blog archives to learn more about the different posts that I mentioned during this conversation. But thanks a lot for joining me on the Marketing Mindset. I hope you'll join us each week. We're filming these every Wednesday, so hopefully you get an opportunity to join us.